Hi everyone, and welcome to Forest.chat, where we talk about individual endeavour in Western Australia, what it takes, what it means, and how you do it. I'm your host, Paul Vandermeer, and in today's episode, we'll be talking with Marilyn Novak about cycling in Mongolia. Marilyn joined a first cycling trip to Vietnam without recent cycling experience. It took some practice before leaving to become comfortable enough with cycling to take on the challenge. While cycling was the mode of transport, the trips provided so much more. Welcome to Forest.chat, Marilyn.
Hi Paul, thank you. I'm happy to share my experience with you. If I can do it, I'd have to say anyone can do it.
That's terrific, Marilyn. Thank you for joining us. Marilyn, can you tell us what this cycling trip was?
Well, I can talk to you about Mongolia, which was absolutely fabulous because it's just one of those countries that's off the grid. But I'll also talk to you a little bit about what it took to get to Mongolia.
So what inspired you, Marilyn,
Right at the beginning, I was a public servant. I'm not young, I can tell you that. And my friend, and she's given me permission to use her name, but Swelan, had this ambition to ride a bike in Vietnam with some friends, and she asked me would I join her. And my initial response was no. I haven't ridden a bike since I was a teenager, and left it at that. And then some months later, I had some changes in my work environment and was at a bit of a loose end, and I went and saw Swelan and said, "Are you still going to Vietnam?" Yes. Before I walked out of her office, I was signed up on the flight and I hadn't ridden a bike since I was a teenager. So we met for some local rides. She introduced me to the friends she had going, and in the end there were 6 of us, but we had to do lots of local rides because I wobbled along on my bike. I didn't know how to change gears. I couldn't even ride very far because I was not fit, and we started the journey right then and there, and in about May 2016 we went to Vietnam for the first time, which was such a massive achievement for me that I'm still incredibly proud of myself that I rode a bike over 500 k's through Vietnam.
500 kilometres, that's massive.
Over a lot of days, we didn't do it. And we had a group, there were 6 of us, but we had a tour organiser that made sure that our riding exploits each day were within the capabilities of the group. The thing that probably did me in were the mountains when we went through the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and I don't do mountains because I still couldn't manage gears. But so most days we rode between 30 and 40 k's, and it was fabulous.
Wow, and what did it take to do that, Marilyn?
Well, I think it took determination, took a group of friends, took a tour company that understood our limitations, it took camaraderie and a bit of fun and friendship. And we used to share rooms and we got to know each other really well and shared, life stories and secrets. It was a really fabulous experience for me. I hadn't done anything like that because I'd raised a family and was busy working, and this type of holiday was outside of anything I'd thought about. Left my husband behind, kids are all adults, and we went it was 3 weeks all up. It was fabulous.
3 weeks, that's a nice sort of duration for a holiday, I would imagine.
It was exhausting, but we didn't have any major dramas because you can fall off your bike and hurt yourself. Riding bikes day after day takes its toll on other parts of your body as well, but we did it and loved it and shared it, and it was pretty fabulous. And that led on to what are we going to do next?
There's always the the star on the horizon.
Well, I think it kind of feels like it can't end there because we all got so much out of it. It was so great that what's the next challenge? So my dear friend Swelan got to thinking, well, we did Vietnam. We flew into Hanoi and we picked up our bikes. We flew down to Hoi An, I think. I can't remember. And then we rode for about 2 weeks solid and every day, but managed distances. I mean, we didn't ride 90 kilometres a day or whatever, but it was challenging. And we finally arrived in Ho Chi Minh City, and then some of us went to Cambodia, but we didn't ride bikes in Cambodia. So then we come back and it's like, oh no, this is what we've been looking forward to, building up to, discussing, excited about, and it's ended. So there had to be a what next.
There had to be.
So, go on, sorry.
So how long was it between trips?
A year. A year. So the following, Sweeland started planning again and said, well, we did Vietnam, but we didn't actually do much in the south, so we need to do the Mekong Delta. So there were people like my husband, for one, who wasn't invited on the first trip, and he was a bit put out. So Sweeland decided that we were going to have a bigger group and we were going to invite partners and whatever people want to say. Anyway, there were 11 people, 3 men, 8 ladies, and we did the Mekong Delta in 2017, and that was fabulous as well, and such great camaraderie in the group and lifelong friendships made out of it. But people had to start at the beginning of actually getting on a bike and starting to ride to get there. It doesn't, you have to do some preparation and I got better at gears, I can tell you. And then we did the Mekong in 2017, and then it's like, well, what next? So Sweeland come and talked to me and said, Marilyn, would you do Mongolia with me if I did Mongolia? Oh, yes, we would do Mongolia. So she went and put Mongolia out to the rest of the group, and some said no, that was just a step too far for them, and some of us said yes, and 4 new people joined us. So a group of 11 went to Mongolia in 2018, and it was fabulous.
So Marilyn, there's about a year between each of the trips. What did you do with your cycling skills in between?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because it didn't just stop at the end of each trip. We've done bike riding in Margaret River, in the Swan Valley. We've ridden Dunsborough to Bustleton a couple of times. We've done other bike rides, as well as every now and then we will just meet for coffee and go for a ride and come back. And we're going to do that on Friday, where we're just going to meet, ride, probably be about 20 Ks and come back and have coffee and lunch. And 20 Ks, to me, when I first started, sounded just not doable. It sounded enormous. But 20 Ks is actually okay. You can ride 20 Ks if you know how to use your gears. And it was, so we've stayed in touch. So COVID was really difficult, the 2 years of COVID, because we had another trip planned and we were going to go to Georgia and Uzbekistan, and we're going to do another quite exciting ride through the mountains. But in the end, that had to be cancelled, and we haven't been able to really crank up another overseas holiday since then. But we've done our rides and we've gone away for the weekends, and they're just a fabulous group of people, and they all love karaoke. So when we go away for the weekend, they, some more than others love karaoke, but they often will sing, and we adventure out during the days and share food and all the things that you do with a friendship group, I think.
So Marilyn, it's taken you quite a little bit of effort and learning to get your cycling skills back, and then you had the connection with the other people that you were cycling with, and you went to some very amazing sounding places. That's a good example of what it takes. Next, we'll look at what it means. We've heard what it takes to cycle in another country. Now it's time to explore what it means. Marilyn, how has it changed you, your family, or the community?
Well, I guess if I start at a personal level, for me, it's shown me that I can do it. And that probably sounds crazy, and it's stuff I think you carry across in other aspects of your life, but I never in a million years thought that I could ride, let's say, 20 kilometres. I didn't think I could ride 2 kilometres. But I rode hundreds of kilometres in each of the 3 countries and that we've been talking about. And so for me, there was a real sense of growth and accomplishment and, achievement. For my husband, John, he absolutely loved the whole environment and formed some very close friendships with the whole group. Like, there was such a bonded group that even now you would seek those people out if you wanted some support or some friendship or camaraderie or, something like that. It was, and for John, his confidence just grew and grew. And then when Sweeland took us to a karaoke bar in Ho Chi Minh City, John hasn't looked back. He's absolutely loved karaoke, brought out the Elvis in him. And it was just a fabulous shared experience, but also an experience that's been so wonderful to share with we've got 3 adult sons and our grandkids, and we sent them, photos and stories, and they've just loved it. But also our work colleagues and our friendship network have all been, in fact, some people out of my friendship network have joined the group as well. So it's just, and we learned so much. I can't explain how much you learn when you go off the beaten track, when you travel in other countries. You learn so much more about that country and how it operates for ordinary people. So people that are outside of the cities, that live in these rural areas that are, and we rode through rice paddies by the dozens, but we rode through these little villages that had cottage industries going on, and those cottage industries went from cleaning out fish bladders for some purpose to making bricks at a rate of knots. But one of the sad things about making bricks was that they had to use the clay that had built up in the rice paddies for decades, probably centuries even. But once they took it out of the rice paddies and used it for bricks, those rice paddies were no longer, could be used as a rice paddy. So there was a cost to what they were doing, but it was a way of surviving and living. And I think that's fairly universal, how there seems to be a cost to, what you need to do to survive, so it seems.
Yes, mining takes things out of the ground and you can't use it for anything else until maybe they repatriate it later on, but it could be a hole in the earth.
That's right. Mongolia was a significant example of that, because Mongolia is in the middle of China and Russia, and I can't remember who the third country is, but their neighbours are, sort of imposing neighbours. But they have mineral wealth because they're a very old country like Australia, so they have a lot of mineral wealth, but they don't have a strong government, and their government just isn't able to withstand the multinational companies that want to come in there and set up, and they have, and it's changing that whole country quite significantly. And I don't know anything about Mongolia until I did some research before we went, but you don't really know anything until you get there, and then you realise that this country's at the mercy of multinationals that want its mineral wealth.
So Marilyn, when you're with the community there in Mongolia, was there anything going on that was of interest?
Look, I think we were very lucky that we happened to be in Mongolia at the time of their Nadam festival. So we'd pretty much finished our ride, and we were in a city called Karakoram, I believe, and it was Nadam festival. But it was so fabulous to be a part of it, because the entire community and everyone anywhere near the town of Karakoram came in dressed in their absolute finery. And so you would see husbands, wives and children all dressed in whatever traditional the robes are called, and I don't know that, but hot pink and brilliant orange and radiant purple, or brilliant colours, but the whole family was dressed in the same colours. And it was just gorgeous, everyone being on parade. But the whole, it was all centred around this not stadium even, it was all flat, it was just ground, and there was wrestling, and there was of all ages, little kids and teenagers and adults and men, and horse racing for all ages, tiny little kids sitting in saddles and racing these horses as fast as they could, and roping cattle and archery and then pageantry, of everybody being out and about. So it was just so wonderful to be in the middle of a meaningful event for the Mongolian people.
That sounds fantastic,
Oh, it was
Marilyn.
fabulous. It was, great.
Marilyn, it looks like you've had quite a significant amount of meaning gained from that, both for you, for your family, and also an amazing experience in the community. Doing things can be daunting, and we now know you have the resolve and dedication. What are the key steps you took to cycling in another country?
Well, I feel like I'm a bit of a cheat when it comes to this, because Sweelan did all of the organising. I was going to say most, but that would not be fair either. But Sweelan's pretty fabulous, because she came to each of us and discussed what it was that her plan was, and wanted us to be either on board with that or make a decision that that was probably something that we couldn't do. And a couple of people in our group chose not to ride in Mongolia. I'm going to talk about Mongolia more specifically here. So some of the group decided that they wouldn't ride in Mongolia because that was just a step too far for them. So 7 of us from the original group went to Mongolia, and 4 new people joined us who thought it would be exciting. And so Sui Lan would go about clearing with the group what she was thinking and making sure we're on the same page. And once she'd done that, she'd research. And she researched and she researched and she researched. And that's why I'm so grateful, because she spent any amount of time understanding what the local conditions were, what was the best season to ride, finding a local tour guide that wasn't just somebody connected to a multinational. She wanted somebody local that knew the country, that could understand what it was about our group. We're not adventurous long-distance riders. We are a group of older people that love to ride bikes and do these adventures, but they've got to be within our capability, or else it would not end up being the fun that it was. Mongolia was challenging, I might add, but the research and work was done. So we found a tour group that led by a man called Bat, and they provided the bikes, and she sorted flights where we were picked up. We had a train ride all night, about a 14-hour train ride from Ulaanbaatar, where we flew in, to northern Mongolia, where we rode our bikes. We all expected it to be cold, but it wasn't. So we bought cases of all our winter woolies and whatever, but we didn't actually need them. So the work that goes into planning and organising one of these takes many, many months, and it also takes work to make sure that we're not paying an enormous amount of money for not a lot. We slept in tents out on the steppes most nights, which the steppes, I might add, have got centuries of animal droppings on them, because that's all that's out there, the yaks and the horses and the goats and the cows. And so when you were setting up your tent each night, you had to make sure you chose a spot that worked for you. But it was, we knew we were sleeping in tents. We knew, you never know really what to expect when you go on these adventures, but we knew that 5 nights we'd be in tents, and that we'd be in gurs for a certain number of nights, and we'd be in a hotel for a certain number of nights. So that's the work that you need to know before you get there, so that it's within your expectation, I guess, not way outside of it, and you find that it's beyond what you really wanted to be a part of. So hats off to Sui Lan, who does a fabulous job, and the rest of us get to. It's hard, but we got to enjoy it. Love it.
So Marilyn, you talk a lot about Sui Lan and the huge amount of effort that she went to organise the tours. Were there particular things that she attended to that made a real difference?
Oh, absolutely. And I've said this earlier in this conversation, that we're an older group of riders, and we require considerations, and that is that you can set out one day and you can think you're fine, but if the slope is too steep, and that's my biggest issue, and I can't get up that slope, and I've already ridden, 25, 30 Ks, I have to have an out. And so Sui Lan ensured that there's always a van that you can ride in if the ride is too difficult for you. Because the truth is, you've got to back up again the next day. And if you push yourself so hard one day that you're exhausted and you can't get up riding the next day, then the whole tour is over for you. So the safeguards are that we have a van with us. She also makes sure that Mongolian diet is not one that Australians would enjoy. It's usually boiled meat and potatoes, but boiled very fatty meat. And you can't sustain your rides if that's what you're eating every day, and probably mostly we wouldn't eat it because we did have vegetarians in the group as well. So and our bikes were so well taken care of. Right, the crew that was with us every night, they checked your bike, they cleaned your bike, they made sure your tyres were pumped. Your bikes have got to be in good condition. And sometimes we're riding through mud, and sometimes we're just riding through plains of grasses and whatever that could have grass seeds or goodness knows. So those kind of three key elements were fully discussed and fully in place before we go. You also need to know that you've got some medical treatment available if you need it, and they have sat phones and things that they could make contact if required. Truth be known, we didn't need any of it, bar the vans, but it was fabulous and extremely well organised, but that's the detail that needs to be attended to make this successful.
Fantastic. It sounds like Sweelan really did her homework on this. Thank you for sharing your experience cycling through other countries, Marilyn. And from all Forest.chat listeners, we wish you all the best in your future endeavours.
Thanks, Paul. It's actually been quite fabulous, and I never in a million years thought that I'd be riding my bike in Vietnam or in Mongolia, and the very fact that I put down to the fabulous group of people that I travel with and to my dear friend Sweelan. So thank you.
Thank you. You've been listening to Forest.chat, where we talk about individual endeavour in Western Australia, what it takes, what it means, and how you do it. I'm your host, Paul Vandermeer, and in today's episode, we talked with Marilyn Novak about cycling through other countries. Remember, there are 4 ways you can get involved with Forest.chat. Share the domain Forest.chat with your friends and family and people you meet. Listen to the published episodes at forest.chat/episodes. Book an interview at forest.chat/interview. Book an advert at forest.chat/advert. I'm looking forward to joining you with our next interview. Until next time, enjoy making it happen.